What you are about to hear will blow your mind and give you six-pack abs without even exercising.
Pull up a bar stool and relax.
Hey, who wants to have some fun?
You've made it to Happy Hour with John Gaskins.
Oh, no. Not again.
Get ready for entertaining local and regional sports talk that will change your life, or not.
And by the way, when you're telling these little stories, here's a good idea. Have a point. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener.
Here's your host, John Gaskins.
Here's Johnny. Hello! Ah!
I'm back, baby! I'm back!
Hey, happy hour on a Tuesday. It's a special Tuesday. It's a treat for Jackrabbit fans today because our one and only segment and guest, simply one of the best receivers and players in the history of Jackrabbit football, and definitely a part of some really, really high times there. 2017 to 2019, Cade Johnson, the all-time South Dakota State record holder in touchdowns in a game and a season. All-time record holder in kickoff returns in a season. He did that as a freshman and was named to the all-newcomer team. As a sophomore, the all-Mo Valley team. As a junior, he was a first-team All-America. He is top 10 in school history in career receptions for touchdowns, career receptions, period. All-time sixth in single-season receptions and receiving yards. And he's both fourth and seventh place in single-season reception yards. So, and a lot of these career marks, he'd be at or near the top had he played his senior season. But he didn't. That was the COVID year of 2020, and he decided to go to the NFL in the spring of 2021. 3 seasons there with the Seahawks, plus a season in the UFL with the Birmingham Stallions. And Cade Johnson, the son of a Husker football great and a brother of both a Wyoming and Kansas State wide receiver. All wide receivers.
Yep.
With us now in his office in Omaha, where he's now into commercial real estate. So first of all, it's great to have you. I know Jack's fans are already smiling. Some good memories probably came bubbling back just from the overview there. So we appreciate your time. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I just love my Sioux Falls and Brookings. I mean, not as much Vermilion, but I love all my South Dakota people and I miss everybody. So I'm happy to be here. Okay,
so you're now jumping into commercial real estate. You've been a pro football player for about 5 years now, and you explained to me you're not quite done with football. But you're not sure. You're kind of in limbo. So just kind of explain that, and also how you got into commercial real estate with some Omaha sports luminaries.
Yeah, I know this. Yeah, no, it's been a whirlwind. I'm always just early on in my NFL career, I was raised, my parents have just always been great with finances and long-term plays and all the things. And like I was saying to you, Tyler Lockett kind of got me into real estate in my younger years in Seattle. And then I came back to Omaha and started buying rental houses and seeing just kind of what residential real estate did with me. And after the UFL season, it hit me last year that, I kind of want to get into real estate. This is one of those things that you can do and still hold on to your dreams if you're still kind of teetering on the back end of them. So for me, it was commercial was what stood out for me. And then, I sat down with some companies here, but then my mom's best friend has worked at Collier's in the Omaha branch for 15, 16 years. And she introduced me to Kyle Peterson. And so from then on there, we just kind of hit it off, and Kyle's just been a great, I didn't get to see him as much during baseball season, but every time we get together, he's just always giving me knowledge, and I relate to him so much, and just, life after professional sports, and especially being in the Omaha market, because there's so much money here and opportunity, and, there's just not a lot of people that have got to make it to that level. So we kind of connected, and I kind of just hit the ground running and touching base with all my people, and have talked to, some SDSU folks just about it, and Ryan McKnight and obviously Coach Jackson, and just, happy to just make introductions and meet new people. And I think the cool thing too about Colliers is we can do deals within the whole, country. And it's cool to just make phone calls to Seattle. And I have a lot of ties there. And I lived in Orange County when I was training for the draft. And yeah, I just feel like this world is limitless, and there's just so much to be, discovered and learned. And I'm just excited. I'm young and hungry and just being a sponge right now. I feel like a rookie in the NFL again. So,
well, by the way, Kyle Peterson, for those who don't know, that don't know their college baseball, for one, he's an Omaha product, baseball star in high school. Then he was a standout at Stanford, played a little pro baseball, but he's been the voice of the College World Series, the main analyst on College World Series broadcasts for ESPN for years, at least a decade. And so I've always wondered, what does he do for a day job in Omaha? Now you've just answered it. He's Cade Johnson's, I don't know if you call him your boss, but there's that. And most people know or remember that Omaha is your hometown, or at least your home area. You grew up officially in Papillion, but you went to school at Bellevue West. Those are both suburbs. Your dad played at Bellevue West before you became a Husker. So you got all this going on, and you're excited, but yeah, you still can maybe have one foot in the football pool after being a part of the UFL last spring, 2025 spring.
Yeah.
So kind of where's that at? What's your attitude or situation outlook on, you're still in your 20s, you still might have some football to play.
Yeah. I mean, it's so unpredictable. You never really know. I loved my 1 year in the UFL, and, shortly after my UFL season, I had a workout with the Chargers, and it went really well. And I felt like I did everything I could, and it just didn't work out last year. And so that was the, real estate calling. And I'm sitting in the office, and, just the competitor in me, I always kind of just stay in shape and work out. And I've been taking back up hoops and walking my dogs a lot, and just doing little things to just stay in shape and kind of, stay about my athlete ways. And then I'm sitting in the office, and I just remember, so this would have been towards the end of May, beginning of June. And I'm sitting in my bed. We just finished up a hoop session, and my agent calls me, and he's like, "Hey, Harbaugh wants you to do rookie minicamp this week." So I went there for a week, and they ended up keeping me a few days after. And so that was like a month ago. And it's just like the league is just so unpredictable. And my wide receiver coach from Seattle has been in LA for 3 years now. And he was kind of the coach in my career that took me to that next level. And I ended up starting a playoff game for him. And, I was the second leading receiver the year. We didn't make it as far as the Seahawks made it this year, but we made it to the wild card round, and we played the 49ers. So we just have that good connection, and was able to kind of spend a weekend or a week with Mike McDaniel. That was really cool. And then Harbaugh is just a legend. And so just coming from this setting to go there, and I just kind of, I'm just the type of person that I always bet on myself. So I just put my best foot forward, and if something comes of it, that would be really cool. But at the same time, I'm also working on something really cool right now. So
yeah, they kind of have you in their mind bank should, they need receivers at some point in the fall. And I mean, but you got a Jim Harbaugh experience. There had to be something that happened during however long you spent there with the Chargers that you got the up close kind of goofiness, kookiness of Jim Harbaugh, or greatness. He's a great coach. But what's your burning memory?
I just think with him, it's like, if you're not talking about football, he doesn't want to talk to you. So he eats, sleeps, and breathes football. And I think, it's just cool because you can see why he has so much success. And, it's either you're with the program or you're not. Like jersey tucked in, you have to have your socks at a certain length. So I just thought that the 2 times I've been there, I'm like, I know how to play for this guy. And then on the same time, it's like, it's cool to get, I had 3 years with Pete, Carroll and I was one of Pete's guys, and we became super close when I was in Seattle, and just those guys are kind of rivals in the coaching world. So just having those two perspectives is just an awesome experience for me. And just, even though I haven't officially been on the Chargers yet, I've spent some time in that locker room and just in those walls in that facility. And so just, learning from him in the short amount of time as well has just been an experience. I feel like I can't take it away. So.
Yeah, well, it's great that you bring up Pete Carroll, because him and Harbaugh, they go all the way back. Memorable moment when USC was on top of the college football world when Pete Carroll was coaching there, coming off, I think, a national title. And Jim Harbaugh and Stanford whipped him pretty good in the Coliseum and kind of ran up the score, showed no mercy. And the famous handshake where Pete says to Jim, "Dude, what's your deal?" We would definitely find out in the years to come with the Niners and Michigan and now the Chargers what his deal is. You kind of just explained it. But, okay, Pete Carroll, you got 3 seasons of him toward the end of his tenure in Seattle, and they were all kind of 500 squads. You mentioned a wild card team. But specifically, Pete, what will you take away from playing for him?
Man, yeah, he's like, besides Stig, I would put him up there with just like one of the best coaches I've ever had, and just the energy that he brings off. And I think the cool experience for me was like going in there as an undrafted free agent. And obviously it was an ideal situation because, I had draft grades and I thought that was going to go different for me. But at the same time, Pete kind of embraces you for the player you are. And he allows you to have a personality. And I think there's a lot of NFL. I know from the stories that I've heard from other people on different teams that, it's like one way or no way. And I think for Pete was just competing and being your best self every day. And I think that just raised the standard of just like not only a football player, but just a person in general. And, when you have the head man talking to everybody, trainers, has great relationship with strength staff, I can see why he's had so much success. And he actually is out there, and you would never guess he's the age he is because he's running up and down the field and whipping the ball and playing catch. And it's just it honestly feels like a dream to me now that I'm saying it. And, you get older and you realize, man, I wish I would have just soaked up some of those years a little bit more. But when you're in them, it's all about just having fun and just remembering why we played football. And I just think that was an awesome experience because you don't get that a lot, especially when you're at the highest level and there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, so basically a lot of things people have said about him and playing for him is true. Just the kind of boyish, almost childlike energy and enthusiasm that's contagious. And, so before we get to Cade Johnson's high school, then Jackrabbit career, just to look through, you've kind of been, perhaps I could call it the NFL ringer, just the experience of you decided not to stick around for that COVID spring 21 season. You make yourself eligible for the draft. You don't get drafted, but you sign undrafted free agent with the Seahawks in May. They waive you in late August, late in training camp, but then they re-sign you to the practice squad. But then around Thanksgiving, they release you, but then they re-sign you a week later. They sign you a future contract in January. And then you kind of went through the same sorts of things in 2022. Cut, probably the last cut before the season started in training camp, but practice squad. And then you got to play finally in week 18 against the Rams. You actually caught a couple passes. So we can get into all that. But how would you depict that whole roller coaster ride?
Yeah, I think for me, it was always about just putting my best foot forward. And when you explain it to me, how you explained it, it from an outside looking in, you don't see that when you're in it because it's just any opportunity that you're just being considered to be even on the practice squad. I just know a lot of guys that are out of the league now that would take 1 week of a practice squad. And I think for me is always pushing to want more and showing up every day. And that's the thing is when you're in those locker rooms, it's just it's such a blessing to just be able to show up and go to practice. And I think those little moments is my younger self, I would just keep telling him to keep showing up and keep going because for me, it was like the situation is what the situation is. I can take it and feel bad for myself, or I can take it and make action to it. And so I think a big just theme of my whole story is just showing up. And, I thrive more off of the no's than I do the yeses. And there was a couple times in my career where it could have pivoted and went the other way, but at the same time, I always believed in myself, and I knew I could be something. And so for me, that was kind of it, and just showing up and not thinking too hard into things, but just being where my feet are. So,
yeah, that's a great term, more commonly used these days. It's an impactful one. And that sort of attitude, like I'm guessing some of it comes from your father, Clester, maybe a little John Stiegelmeier there, and maybe your mom. I don't know her. Because that's an incredibly, insanely mature attitude. So yeah, how were you grounded that way?
Yeah, I think just, my two parents, like my dad is very extreme, and then my mom is like very loving. And so like I had the best of both worlds. And then on top of that, I attribute a lot of my success to my older brother, because, we were 15 months apart, and he was the prodigy child and could just do everything. So for my whole life, I was just, really just chasing in his footsteps, and I just wanted to be as good as him. And he went to Wyoming and, had a great career there, and was able to play with, the league MVP and Josh Allen, and they had a great bond. And I actually saw Josh this past weekend, and we were just talking about old times and talking about my older brother. And it just brings joy to me that I can tell, people that he was just a huge success for me, and just wanted to be as good as him. And just our parents always like raised us with that blue collar work ethic, and, we're from Omaha, chip on our shoulder. Like we were overlooked, and I think too is like that kind of, ties into how Coach Jackson is running the program now at SDSU, and just like, Midwestern, just show up and be there. And I can't thank my parents enough for just always pushing us, and never settling for where we're at, but always wanting to want more and treat people the right way and all the things. So yeah, my parents are just amazing. I love them.
Well, let's dig into that further. Your father, 1994 and 95, back-to-back national title teams for Nebraska football. You're laughing already. Fans of this program, or listeners, I don't know if I want to call them fans, to have to take Nebraska drinks because I somehow weave the Huskers without trying, sometimes just to needle people.
Yeah.
But this is appropriate. I've got, so I'm sure, are you a Husker fan still? Are you a Husker fan?
I'm more of a Husker fan now that I'm not playing anymore.
Sure. Were you a Husker fan growing up?
Yeah, I grew up going to Memorial, and
of course,
like people, obviously, no offense to Nebraska, but they haven't been relevant like to the 90s. I'm trying to choose my words correctly so people don't try to like come at me.
Don't worry, Cade. I've got this T-shirt right behind me for those not watching the show on Sioux Falls Live. This team makes me drink. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've got another one that says Saturdays are for pain and sadness.
Yeah.
And another one, my most recent and my favorite is that applies to your dad is we were good in the 90s though. Or did you see us in the 90s?
Yeah.
And now you were born 3 years after your father was done at Nebraska, but most people understand. I mean, we're close enough to the border. There were a lot of Husker fans around here catching the wave. Yep. Just how big of a deal it was, how dominant they were.
Yeah.
And he had some catches on the 94 national title team, first national title in Osborne's career, first in 23 years. It was such a zenith moment. And then the next year was, some have still voted this the number one college football team of all time.
Yeah.
It's certainly probably the most dominant. They averaged 40 points per victory. They averaged 30 points per victory against the four top 10 teams that they played.
Yeah.
And I'll just add gratuitously that most of those games were without Lawrence Phillips, because that was the Lawrence Phillips controversy year.
Sure. Yep.
Anyway, back to your dad. He was the leading receiver on that team. It was a rushing team, but he caught he was a leading receiver.
Yeah.
I guess so. Since you were born 3 years after that, you're being raised by him. when did you first know? Did he tell you? Were you very aware early that your dad was, if not a star, a part of an incredible team and time? Or did he keep that away from you?
Yeah, it's like, for the longest time, it's like my dad has a unique name too. Like Clester is like, I only know 2 Clesters in this world, and it's my dad and older brother. And, just growing up, like hearing stories about my dad, I think his role was really cool too. And, I'm 5'10", 5'11", 185 on a good day. And my dad was just like a tank. He benched 405 in high school as a quarterback. And he was like down south Memphis, just strong and tough, nose to the grindstone. And he actually went in as a quarterback, and he was like the athlete of the year in Nebraska. He wrestled for 1 year and was like 32-1, lost in the state finals, like 1-0. And he won the hurdles and track. So he was just an athlete, and he was gifted. And he took the role as like, okay, I'm in Nebraska. And I think at the time, Steve Taylor was just getting done, playing. And, we're good family friends with Steve and his family as well. And Tommy and Brooke were there. And my dad just kind of knew right away that, it was going to be hard to play as a quarterback at Nebraska. And he took the role as, they don't call it, I don't even think this position is a thing anymore, but the wing back.
Yes.
So when I saw highlights of him, lining up in the slot, and then the next play, like, why are you in fullback position and Amon Green or Lawrence Phillips is behind you and you're cracking the middle linebacker? I just think there was so much more to like that football team that it doesn't show up in the stats. And there's just like, I call them all my uncles and stuff, but just like seeing films of them is like, my dad always told us like, and I think me and my brothers, we always like garnished this mentality was like, if he wasn't blocking or like doing the little things, like he wasn't getting the ball. And whenever they got the ball, it was like, you have to do something with it because you don't know if you're getting a pass like this game or even the next game. So right. I think, and then just growing up, he always had this trophy, and it was like kind of like similar to a replica of the Heisman, but it wasn't quite the Heisman. And I finally read it one day, and he was awarded like the top senior on the 95 team just by the teammates. And I think that just speaks levels to my dad's work ethic and the type of player he was. And he just was such a team guy. And I think that carried back to us of just like even blocking, like we need to be good at blocking instead of just like all the flashy stuff that you see. So I think, yeah, you don't notice it at a young age, but like as I've grown throughout the years, and we're down at the Lincoln games and people are asking him for pictures, and it's 2026 and the last time he played.
And he was a wingback. I mean, the Clester. Crazy. I loved watching Clester. He was a blast to watch. Yeah. And if you can't block, you can't play wide receiver at Nebraska in the 90s. Yeah. But like, I mean, they had Tommy Frazier, Amon Green, Lord Phillips, mm-hmm. This is one of the best offensive lines in school history. Then defensive players, don't get me started. And still, they recognize Clester Johnson 30 years later. Yeah, that tells you something. What's that? What was that like for you as a kid going to Husker games? Because maybe he didn't, remind you of it every day, but then when you would go to the game, you would certainly know. Yeah. Did that make you nervous as a kid? Was it inspiring to follow in his footsteps? And then on top of that, you said you had an uber talented brother as well. Yeah. And by the way, I'll toss in this. Everybody's a receiver. Yes, he was a wingback, and you didn't really catch very many passes at Nebraska, but everybody's a receiver, including your younger brother. Yeah. So how did this all feed into you becoming a receiver? And you obviously deciding to play football and try to follow the footsteps.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me too was like my dad always told us that we were our own selves. And like I think that spoke measures to each of us as, kids growing up. And I actually tell this story, and some people really don't believe me when I say it, but I didn't actually go out for football until my sophomore year of high school. And so my dad so I was just a basketball guy, and I was small, and I'm like the run of the family. My other brothers are pretty big. And for me, it was like, I was always good as a kid growing up, but then, everybody started growing and I kind of stayed the same. And my dad like encouraged me. He was like, son, like, I did this and CJ's having success at an early age. I think you should give football another try. And so for me, it's like him installing that confidence into me as a sophomore in high school. And then, like at my high school still to this day is like, we grew up in Papillion, but my dad went to Bellevue West. So I think it was a lot more pressure for my older brother, just carrying that name and having big expectations, because he was really good coming out of junior high, and he was starting as a freshman, and he was just, like I said, he was everything and more. And just for my dad, it's like there's one retired number at Bellevue West still to this day, and it's number 1, and that's my father's number. And so I think it was more of a not a pressure thing to live up to him, but just to like want to make him proud and carry on that legacy. And it was never talked about, but I felt like we just all installed it and took that upon ourselves to represent that Johnson name. And it was just, it was so fun. And I couldn't ask for a better high school career, and just growing up in the state of Nebraska, like going back to the games, and just the respect that my dad has, because not only because he was a great football player, especially in those times when there was, guys coming in from every which way and having different backgrounds, and, him giving the cards that he was given raised up, but like just being a great guy as well. And he's had success in his career after just staying in the area and just showing people that, he's not only a great football player, but he's also a really good human being. So,
yeah. Well, you said he was intense, but then you also said he instilled confidence in you. So that it doesn't sound like you felt pressure. You just felt inspired to do what he said you were capable of doing. So was there ever any hardship there, or was it all just, hey, I'm going to play some football. I'm going to do my best. And what was he like? Was because, you've heard of the nightmare or the, helicopter, whatever dads.
Sure.
And how did he fall?
Yeah. And my dad always acknowledges those type of dads. And like, that was his main thing, is like to be present in his kids' lives, but to never just be the one who steers the ship. Like the kids are the one who steers the ship, and just, we always had to have our priorities straight. And I think for him, it was, I said it earlier, but it was like never being content with where we're at. So like we could look at it like, oh my gosh, like I had 75 yards and a touchdown, but my dad's telling me I have more. And I think that's where it was at, where it was like, like good games or great games, and then just the standard is always being set and always being raised. And I think he had such a unique way of doing it, because he would never like flat out say that, but by actions and words, in the way that, he's communicating to us as boys. And just like, when you have 3 boys that are like similar in age, we were always competing against each other. And I think when it starts in the household, it's like, you're keeping it in those walls, and you're like, like we were really just chasing my older brother, and he did a really good job of like, not as much friendly competition, but there was competition growing up. And I think he did a good job of, just raising that standard every time it was set, and just like never being content where we're at, and just wanting more and more and more. And so I think,
Sure.
It was honestly beautiful. I don't think he or my mom could have done it any more perfectly than they did. So.